Hi, I'm Frederick Forster, newly crowned National Chef of the Year 2011, and I'm here today to demonstrate a recipe for all you food lovers out there. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to make steak and ale pie, a very classic British dish. First thing I'm going to do is season the chuck steak, a bit of pepper on here, and a little bit of salt. Maldon salt's always good. You know, good quality salt's very important for cooking. Make sure you've got a very nice hot pan, got to be smoking. I've got some sunflower oil in here. You don't want to use an oil that's too strong. Mix all my salt and pepper into my chuck steak nicely, and then add a touch of flour. Flour just to thicken the actual sauce later on as you're actually cooking. Mix that nicely in. Now I place my chuck steak inside. You want to hear that nice sizzling sound there. That way you know you're going to get all the juices nicely sealed in, and you get like nice coloration on your meat also. So that's going to color now for approximately, let's say, 5 to 6 minutes, all nicely caramelized all over. Okay, now we've got our chuck steak, which is nicely browned off now. So what I'm going to do now is basically pour my red wine into this now, which goes in like that. With the red wine, basically what I do is before I actually start cooking the beef, I sort of just bring it to the boil so it's hot, so that when it goes into the actual meat itself, the cooking process starts immediately. So it's always good to have nice hot wine and also hot stock as well at the side. If you use cold items, it's going to take a long time for it to come to the boil, and just take a long time to cook really. So now I'm going to do is just basically reduce all this red wine down to like a syrup to remove all the alcohol, but still have the natural flavor of the wine in amongst the actual wine itself. And that'll take about maybe 2 or 3 minutes basically. Put a little bit of thyme inside there so for a bit of flavor. Now what you can do while the actual wine itself is actually reducing down, I'm going to take the baby onions and the mushrooms and just sort of reheat them a little bit inside the pan to give a bit of color. So a bit of oil inside. Now I'll just put my little baby onions inside as well. And also I just add my diced, quartered mushrooms as well. I'm just going to color this now for a couple of minutes, okay? Just to get the onions nice and brown, and also the mushrooms nice and brown also. Okay, now as you can see, we've got the wine nicely reduced down to a syrup, which is what you want. Okay, so that's going to be poured to one side. Over here, I've got the nice caramelized onions and mushrooms, which I'm now going to pour into the actual chuck steak beef here, just like so. I have the beef stock here. You can either use just very simple beef cubes and water, or if you have time, you can make your own, which I've done here. So it's not a problem. That also gets poured inside. Now what I do now, I'm going to bring that back to the boil, so I get all the flavor mixing in nicely, and everything thickens very, very well. Then over here I've got the ale, which I'm just going to pour in a little bit of ale. The ale, you can either add everything you want according to the recipe, or you can add half of it depending on your taste. Okay, so I'm going to add half of it to begin with. It gets poured in. I'm going to bring it to the boil nicely. Now one thing that you have to do is, when you actually place your stew actually into the actual oven, I'm going to transfer it to a deeper pan. The reason being, if it's in a shallow pan, all the stock's going to evaporate pretty quickly in the oven. So you're going to transfer it to a pan that's going to retain a lot of the liquid. So this is what I'm going to use here. Nicely brought to the boil. Okay, that's going to be poured inside now. Pop the lid on. Now it's going to be put in the oven now on pretty much like gas mark number, let's say 6. I'll say about 170, 180. For a good 2 to 2.5 hours. So you got nice soft meat. Okay, so now it's been cooking for a couple of hours now. I'm going to demonstrate to you how to cover the pie before it goes back into the oven. Okay, now the first thing you do before you actually start rolling out the actual pastry itself is you need to put your meat mixture into the pan or the bowl that you're actually going to cover the pie in. So I'm going to do that first and foremost. Okay, I'm going to use this nice copper pan here, but you can use whatever dish you want. So you simply just spoon all the mixture out, remove the thyme that you obviously used to cook the actual pie initially, and you pour all that beautiful, rich, dark sauce. Let it fall into the dish nicely. At this stage, your sauce should be nicely thickened. If you remember, we put the flour in there earlier on, which obviously did that for you. Okay, so while that's cooling down now, okay, we're actually going to roll out the actual pastry itself. So all you do, dust your board slightly, a little bit on the actual pastry itself, okay? Make sure your hands are nicely coated in flour. And you're just going to basically roll it out into like a nice sort of round shape, the same sort of size and circumference as the top of your actual dish itself. Now when you roll the pastry out, you don't want it to be too thin and you don't want it to be too thick either. Obviously too thin, when it goes in the oven, it's going to crumble and break. And if it's too thick, it'll just take a long time to actually cook inside the oven. And at the end of the day, it won't be very nice to eat. So you want to find a nice happy medium between thick and thin, okay? Obviously this pie, you know, really it's a dish in itself. It's pretty much completed now really, but you know, in terms of what you can eat it with, something like a beautiful mashed potato would be wonderful. Or some simple, you know, seasonal green vegetables would be nice, you know, some monchouts, some French beans, maybe even some braised cabbage. Okay, now I'm going to put the top onto the pie, and you can either use some homemade pastry like I'm using here, or you can use some boarding pastry. Okay, so I've actually cut it down to the size that I require. I'm going to place it on upside down over the pan, okay, and just gently tuck the edges in underneath, just like so. Not pressing down too hard as to rip the pastry, but just very lightly. Then what I'll do now, I'll just take the egg wash and brush it lightly over the surface of the actual short crust pastry, also on the edges. That will just help to give it a nice golden brown color once it's in the oven and it's cooking. Okay. Take a knife, make an indentation in the center, and to let out some steam while it's cooking. And now that's ready to go into the oven. That'll take about 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, the pie has now been taken out of the oven. It's been there for like 10 to 15 minutes with the pie lid on top. Beautiful and golden brown as you can see, with the aid of the egg wash. Now, just to sort of finish it off before I serve it, a little bit of olive oil, and just brush the surface of your pie lid with it to give it a beautiful shine and glaze. That's banging, man. Okay, beautiful. Finally, just take a little bit of the flat leaf parsley and just slice it very, very thinly. Again, you don't want to kill the herb. Keep it nice and light and fresh. Okay. Sprinkle it on top of your surface of your actual pie. Okay, give it that nice sort of fresh, homely look. And that's ready to be served. Okay, and that's how you do a steak and ale pie.